I would like to take advantage of my position up here on stage and perhaps start with a couple of questions myself. Mr. Benyan, I'll start with you, please. You said as part of your introduction that there needs to be very decisive and drastic action taken by the GCC chemicals industry here, not incremental. So what is the pathway to that? What would you say are the top 3 first steps that the industry needs to take?
I think I have previously shared this with our leaders. There are, in my view, key fundamental success factors that our industry has to keep in mind. The first one, a global footprints. If our leaders or our companies don't have really a global footprints, this is going really weak in their competitive positions. A second, do they have enough investment in R&D? I think some of our key or small or medium-sized players in this region, they don't have an investment in R&D. And R&D, I think, is going to be very crucial for future competitive positions of our industry. A third element, do you have your own also marketing network that is really enable you to connect with customers? And I think this is very crucial for our business growth in the future. You have to have this connectivity with the customers, which are important for our final investment in talent. And talent and leadership who have really a completely different mindset how we approach business. But I would like also to add very important elements that I think we need to go through our risk management culture. If you look at our GCC industry, we traditionally grow through organic growth. And it's much easier to manage your risk and take your time building really a grassroots project. But I think in the future, we need to learn how to acquire, we need to do better portfolio management, and we need to kill projects and sometimes even divest some of the projects that are not really bringing value to our shareholders.
Well, you mentioned R&D. Where do you think R&D, as you said, there's a lack of resources and funding generally for R&D, so that's the first hurdle to overcome, and the commitment of companies to put more resources into that. But given a certain R&D budget, which area of focus should the industry be putting it towards? Technology operating costs were flagged as a very sort of weak area in the region compared to other regions perhaps, and that the advantage of feedstocks is not enough anymore. So how is that where R&D should go into in terms of?
Well, I think to start with, the money sometimes is not the issue. The issue, do we see the value of R&D? That's one. The second, I think also traditionally we think the R&D, it comes within the organizations. We need to invest and develop our own. But I think looking at the futures, the R&D is not going to be created within the organization itself. You have to have a very robust, a network system through universities, partnerships. In addition, you have to be also aggressively going after a specific technology that is going to support your portfolio and acquire them ahead of time. So there are multiple ways that how we invest in technology, and you need to understand what's your business, what's your core business, and that's one side to support your competitive positions from a cost positions point of view. I think as you have heard from our Minister Khalid Al-Falih, he said we need to move from a cost producer into a value creator producer, and I think this is not going to happen unless we have really more investment in R&D.
Value versus volume.
Yeah,
is what he said. And how much of that can perhaps be resolved by, as you said, cooperation on R&D, both with technology providers, but also what about cross-GCC R&D cooperation? Does it make sense to cooperate on that front, sort of to avoid overlap, to pool resources? Is that happening enough, do you think?
Yeah, I think this is very good points. First of all, even organization itself, sometimes they need to understand where they invest their money and which competency they are required. But instead of reinventing the wheel, you need to look at GCC and even globally and find out which partners that can complement some of your strength and also bring you more value and vice versa. I think investing through innovations, that's one. The second, I think partnerships and collaboration is going to be very crucial on our investment in R&D.
Thank you very much. Dr. Kottmann, on that point of cooperation, Would you say that, how would you compare the situation of how GCC chemicals companies invest in R&D and cooperate on that compared to elsewhere in the world, for example, in the US or China, where the industries are clearly leading and leaving this region behind to an extent, as His Excellency said on the stage as well? How critical is that, do you think?
It's always difficult to talk about companies in a region and compare it with others. I think you have to find your own way by analyzing the industry leaders and take the best for your own company with you. For us, innovation is a product or a solution our company can make money with. Everything else is an invention. Inventions are important, but nice to have. Innovations, especially in the specialty chemical industry, is a must to have. And in this industry, you have to apply differentiated business steering, which means you have businesses depending on customer needs and technology levels. You spend 8 or 9% of your budget for R&D, like we do in the catalyst business. And on the other side, a business we have in our portfolio, pigments, is a very mature business. We spend maybe close to 1%. Therefore, you have to distinguish between the business model and the technology needs for this kind of business.
What about the point that was also made, which was the lack of access to IP? And that could be hindering the development of specialty high-value products. You know, the incentive to go and invest in high-value product R&D and actually proceed to the next step. And the GCC holds a very small percentage of the specialty value product market. And that's one of the challenges that His Excellency Fahd has set to the audience here. The lack of access to IP, Mr. Al-Benyan, is that something that you feel, from a regulatory point of view, is going to improve in the region and therefore sort of lead to some of these solutions?
I think there is a huge improvement for the last 3 years in the IB arena. That this is the positive trends. Of course, if you look at SABIC, we probably is the largest patent holders in the Middle East, and we are proud of this. But I think, I second Kottmann, is the IB, if it has no value to bring to the shareholders, it doesn't matter for you. And I think this is very important. This is why I think the future IB requirements has to be built within the interface with customers. You need to understand what's the customer's needs, what the market's requirements, proactively, and try to develop your research focus to come up with this IB. And I think this is, when we look at merger and acquisitions, we have talked about it last year and we alluded to it today as well. I think local players have to look at a global footprints that support their portfolio and acquire those patents or technology, or merge or acquire companies that can really support the core business of your company.
So the GCC players should be looking to invest outside as well as internally. And if they do get to that point of improving their specialty products, value-added products, what about their access to market? How developed is that? Or is it almost not too late? I don't want to be negative here, but how can they ensure that they get that access to the right customer and essentially catch up and beat the competition?
Well, our industry in GCC, it's commodity players to start with. And I think there are some good companies that are trying to transform their portfolio into specialty. But also specialty is different animals. It requires different way of managing the portfolio. In addition, it requires a lot of investment also in R&D, which is different than the commodity business. Therefore, we need to make sure that when we take the step into specialty, we do have the capability. Otherwise, I think this will be a set for a failure. In the same time, you need to have a stronger customer intimacy. Otherwise, you will not be able to manage your specialty portfolio.
What about talent? You said we need to have the right resources, I suppose, whether you're going to be improving your access to market or anything else. That is obviously globally a challenge, to have the right talent coming into the energy industry generally, but this very special sector. how much of a challenge is that, and what are the solutions to encourage more talent into the sector?
I think I personally, I don't see there is really challenges on finding the right talents on the region. There are really abundant of talents that coming out of local or global universities. But the questions on the talent acquisitions, there is a special industry, if you talk about specialty, that it's not really yet matured and developed in the GCC. And the only way for you to do it and bridge the gap through an acquisition of those talents globally from matured market like Europe and North America, and they will be able to support your objectives on the future growth.
And okay, so you're talking about acquisitions and sort of consolidation.
I'm talking about also talent acquisitions.
Talent acquisition,
absolutely.
But how do you do that? You do that by acquiring small companies?
I prefer not to use talent recruitment. Okay. I think if you have the right talent, you should acquire them, because this is really an asset for you, like building a plant.
And what about the point of aligning, again, this whole question of alignment of policy between government and business? If you're looking at a sort of national agenda of revamping a sector or revitalizing sector and trying to make it grow and go in a different direction, again, His Excellency referred to that in terms of aligning. Governments must set the strategy clearly, but in cooperation with the business side of the NOCs, let's say. Is that happening to a satisfactory level, in your opinion, and what tools can be used to make that more effective?
We always ask for more, but I think the tools is engagement. I think we need to have the right level of engagement between the business community and the regulators. But at least I can speak on behalf of my experience in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Right now, our government agency on more speedy mode than the business, and I think that's the challenge for us. I think we have a historical transformation in our country, that is our government agency and regulators are willing to listen and willing to collaborate and coordinate their future policy. And I think this is our role as a business community, to come up with the proper proposal, that is focused for the best interest of the industry on the future. And I think that's what we need to invest in terms of how we're going to engage with our regulators as of today.
There was a mention of the deal between SABIC and Aramco, which is the conversion of oil to chemicals, which has obviously just been announced, a $20 billion contract. How obviously you must be confident it's going to work, but when do you think there'll be obvious signs of how successful that project might be?
Well, I think I can assure you, if SABIC and Aramco work on anything, we will be successful. That's our track record, and I think so. We will take any challenges without making it to a successful end.
Okay. Dr. Kottmann, I'd like to just go back to the question of innovation, and obviously in reference to the GCC, looking to use that as a tool to get better access to their customers and get more successful market-led solutions. What sort of best practices that we have seen in Europe or the US or China, for that matter, do you think the GCC could emulate that it hasn't tried already in that sense?
Yeah, I don't know if this is transferable now to another region like GCC, but
what has worked elsewhere that could possibly also work here that hasn't been tried?
I think if you compare the leaders in different businesses, you can recognize that functional excellence is sometimes the key for success. That means functional excellence in innovation excellence and commercial excellence. Operational excellence gives you cost leadership, but the real access in the intimacy, as you mentioned, to your customers, you get when you do ideation workshops, very structured, well-organized ideation workshops with your customers to analyze their requirements and to translate their requirements into a very milestone-oriented execution plan for your own marketing, for your own sales, and especially your own R&D organization. That's something I'm always impressed when I see other companies who are very, very much experienced in applying these kind of excellence.
Okay, and I think I'll just ask one more question I'd like to put to both of you. Mr. Benyan first. His Excellency Al-Falih challenged the GCC to match the US conversion rates by 2030. And you set the challenge there. Do you think that is a realistic goal, in your opinion? And does the fact that the feedstock advantage, which has lessened, if you like, for the region in recent years, there's a more equal sort of leveling of that globally, does that help the GCC? Does it help propel it to become more operationally efficient and match and try and at least strive to match other rates?
I think Mr. Al-Falih has been easy in the industry. We should do it even earlier. I think we've been talking about these challenges for the last 2 years, and this is why we call for actions. I think we need to take this seriously. If we don't take the actions, I think we all have all the success formulas to turn around our GCC petrochemical players into really a competitive positions. But if we just try to look at external factors and we forget about our internal challenges, we will not be able to make it even 2030.